One other thing that is very significant to understand as part of being in this kind of a journey is willpower is the most important part, and will is the middle pillar also. And when we weaken our willpower, we are actually cruising for a problem in our lives. So today I want to discuss how you can strengthen your willpower and how we weaken our willpower. So let's understand first how we how do we deplete that power. This is one way to understand it. It's a very simple example, and we all do that. We have so many goals in our life. We start to, let's say we start losing weight, and you want to say, I'm going to do my exercise, and I'm going to eat right, and I'm going to also go for a walk, and I'm going to do yoga, and I'm going to do the meditation, and going to do the class. All these things you bring on your plate. When too many short-term goals are established, and too many places the energy is going to go, guess what is going to happen? Not fulfillment of those promises that you made. Because you won't have the energy to fulfill. Mind becomes greedy to do more and more things. So when we do not fulfill the promise that we make to ourselves, what happens?
We lose power.
We weaken our willpower. So on this path, it is very important what kind of a promise we make to ourselves. So there must be one long-term goal and 2-3 short-term goals. Not more than 2 and 3 short-term goals. And like in my example, in my life, I have a routine that every day I'm going to sit in my office for half an hour to do some creative work, to do some contemplation, maybe write something. So I definitely make sure that I am in my office, no matter how busy I am. My day may be going in many different directions, but I definitely make sure that I'm in my office for that half an hour. And in some time, nothing is happening. Sometimes the mind is not in a contemplation mode. Sometimes mind is going in a different directions. Sometimes there is no writing. Sometimes I'm reading a magazine. Sometimes I'm distracted. Guess what? They are insignificant. What is significant?
The time.
That promise that one has made, that I didn't say that I'm going to write all that half an hour, or I'm going to contemplate for that half an hour. That is not a promise, because I know it is not possible. So I made the promise that I'm going to be, and some days are just so flowing, so amazing that you are in a different place. But sometimes the greed comes and says, oh, I can do more today. No, you don't change the promise unless you're really solid in that ground. So when we fulfill our promise, guess what happens? We strengthen our willpower. The graph and the drop of the willpower is added in the bucket of the power. It's just a drop. You will find a fulfillment when you fulfill your own promise. There must be a really very reasonable, very proper excuse not to fulfill the promise. You follow? And this, anybody can do it. You can teach to your grandkids, your family, your friends, anyone who are ready to hear how we weaken our willpower. And do you know, when a sculptor look at the stone, or a painter look at the canvas, or a poet looks at the flower, what do they see? Do they see exactly the same manner as a scientist will look at the flower or we will look at the stone? What do they see? A sculpturist is looking at not a stone. Sculpturist is not looking at a stone. He doesn't look at that stone. What does he see? He sees a statue in it. He sees a sculpture in it already. And what he has to do is to take the unnecessary aspects out, and the image is there. The image is there. So if we can see the goal, that the hidden gem that we carry within ourselves, which is the birthright of ourselves, it's a natural. Do you think peace is a foreign thing? Do you think joy is a foreign thing? Love is a foreign element within ourselves that we have to borrow from somewhere else? We have to gain from somewhere else? Or it is our natural embedded part of our existence? It is shrouded by many different veils. It is clouded. If you go into the mountains, and you especially the precious stones, and you go and pass by, you would not see precious stones. Why would you not see a precious stones when they are there? Because they are so much covered with rocks and dust and they don't look. Mm-hmm. But is the stone already there in it or not? Mm-hmm. And jeweler will see immediately. Watch some kind of a video that is available online, that how do they mine. I would not see them as so valuable stones. And then they take the unnecessary aspect out and they polish it, and the luster is there. Life, what we are doing through our meditative process, is lustering and polishing the inner being ourselves. It's a refinement process by developing our consciousness, where love shines in our life, where joy becomes part of our everyday life. It's not something that we have to borrow. It is not something that you have to learn. Can love be learned? It cannot be learned. The love that we learn is a conditional behavior, is an instinctual aspect. The true love, which is unconditional love, and it is not a biased love, and it is not only limited love to the people we know. That kind of a love is our birthright. It does not come from outside. But we have to break all the unnecessary thing that we have been carrying in our mind. Unnecessary aspect. Remember, whatever you give attention to in your life, this is something that you want to remember today. Whatever you give attention to, that is going to become a reality. And when it becomes a reality, what happens? We give more attention to that reality, and then it becomes more real. So one has to be very careful, because your attention is your awareness. It must go in a right direction to what you want to make real. Are you following? If a speck of dust comes into my eye, one eye or both eyes, and I am not able to see the sun, and I say sun does not exist, is that a right statement? That speck of dust, one speck of dust, has a capability to cloud my vision not to see the immense infinite sun. Think about that. How easily we can be clouded. And we forget everything else at that time. We forget, we deny immediately. Because we pay attention to that cloud, that speck of dust. So what do we have to do? What is the right process for us to experience sun?
Take out the speck of dust.
Take off the speck of dust. Unnecessary thing. That is a foreign element that came in our life. If something is a real, it is going to be 24/7. 365 days. That is a part of our natural existence. Imagine that you are in a house and that house is in fire. What are you going to do? Run outside of that fire. You're not going to say, let me call Alok and see what he thinks about the situation and what is the right action to do. Are you going to do that? Or you're going to say, let me open Bible and see what the scriptures say when the fire happens. What is the right action to do?
Run.
Or do you say that, oh, fire doesn't exist. This is just an illusion. Let me go in my room and meditate. There are people who do that. There are people who say, oh, this life is so much trouble, let me just call it, this whole world is an illusion. And it is not real. So why bother? We become very talented for our reason to escape. And they have created the entire logic behind this illusion. If something is unreal, is it worthy to run away from?
No.
If you really consider something unreal, are you going to run away from it? Your running away proves what?
That it's real.
That you're considering it real. So when the fire say, you don't even say, I'm going to try to run. That would be an invalid statement. So there is no trying. The question is, what is the question in order for you to run? What is the most important question, or what is the most important state of mind?
Clarity.
That is, there is a fire. If you're clear that there is a fire, then the natural organic behavior is to run out.
I think that's the tricky part, to know when it's illusion and when it's real.
Well, when you are suffering, there is a fire. God did not create suffering. If God created suffering, we don't want to believe in that kind of a God. Period. So suffering is the greatest illusion. We are suffering. We are enveloped in fire. But we don't even realize how we have created that illusion, how much attention we have given that has become a reality. That's what I was saying. More you give the attention. So we don't have an idea, first of all, that how every pore of our being is enveloped in that fire. And what is the role of this teachings? What is the role of any teaching? I believe the role of a teaching is to shout fire, 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 and hope that you may hear it. Because the moment you will hear, there will be a complete transformation and a huge change to your all your environment, a perspective, a paradigm shift. You may not view the life as you have been viewing. And it's very interesting because it's kind of like a renewal process. It's like dying from the old and being born again to a new life. You follow me? Because we have a tendency to go back to old view. When I came from India, the things that I did not like when I was in India, like the superstitious behaviors, like the Bollywood songs and movies, like some food and the family members, and the enmeshment of the family. In my first 3 years, I craved for all those things. I craved for those things which I left and understood the futility of it. Are you following? Because the craving continues to take place in our realm. It continues to take us into the old way.
So it's like an obsession almost.
It is an obsession. This is why that majority of Indians who came in 80s and 90s, and we will see in our own life, they still, it's 2020 almost, they are still in 80s and 90s mindset. And if you go to India, India has moved from 80s and 90s to 2020. It has become a very modern country. So when people go back, they don't find the same India. And so when they come here, because they don't realize, and they create the same thing what they left. And I see in each of our lives, we have a tendency. When we realize something significant is taking place and some awakening is happening and some light is becoming clear and we are moving, but the unconscious wants to draw us through craving to the same life. So we may fall in that kind of a trap if we give any credence to it. Any credence. Otherwise, this new life, the new realization is a remarkable life. Dr. Ernesto, he is one of our student here, and he's a heart specialist. And he called me today and he said, Alok, I want to share something interesting with you. And I said, what is it? And so he's our Kabbalistic healer. He had gone through a year training in Kabbalistic healing, and he's a minister. And so he said, well, something happened, and he has a huge fish tank, aquarium. And my fish had a disease, some kind of a bacteria and something that happened, and 80% fish died. So he was thinking about giving meds, but if he would give a meds in an aquarium, he had a different kind of, what do you call that, the life which is in the ocean? Coral life. He had coral life. With those medicine, the coral will die. So he had this conflict going on, and then he thought, okay, why don't I do the healing work? And he used the healing techniques that he had incorporated in his life, and he was amazed that the bacteria had died and the aquarium became healthy in 2 days. 2 days. You can ask him when he comes tomorrow.
Yeah.
So he also says that it's easier to deal, and we also talk, easier to deal with animal kingdom for healing because they don't have a resistance. They don't have a doubt. It's easier. But mankind has a resistance, and mankind has a doubt. We don't have a focused mind. I am not saying that doubt would not prevail in the lower realm of our existence. But if we have a focused mind, like in myself, in my little example, when I left India and came here, I had one thing clear in my mind, where I'm heading. So if a distraction comes and craving comes, it wanted to take me back In first few years, 2 3 years, I always wanted to go back. But that was the one aspect, the lower aspect. The lower aspect was ruled with my focused mind that was looking at the goal. One goal, to move forward. And that is a kind of example that I want to give it to you. When you are integrating these kinds of energy, you are becoming very powerful. You are becoming a new man. The old pattern will come to your mind. Old feelings will come to your mind. But what should you do? Not to give any attention to it. Not to give any attention. One focus, one goal, one goal. Where are you heading? You are heading outside of the fiery life. Imagine you are walking in a narrow streets of India and it's very crowded and you are only a mile away from your house and you came to know that your house is on fire and you start running towards your house because that's the greatest possession you have. And then a friend shouted hello to you. Are you going to pay attention? Are you going to spend time? And somebody says, I'm going to give you money. Are you going to take that $200 that he's going to offer you? What are you going to do? You have a one-track mind to extinguish the fire. And this kind of a realization is a very necessary realization. We still think from that old perspective and reason to live the same old life, so nothing happens. There was a very famous emperor in India. His name was Akbar. Have you heard his name, Akbar, before? Very popular emperor. And when he was just a babe, his mother left him. So one other woman came to raise him up, and she had her own son. So she was breastfeeding, and he was like an year old, and this was younger, and she breastfed him, the Akbar, and he grew up. At the age of 12, he was coronated, and at the age of 23, 24, he became the greatest emperor of South Asian world, greatest emperor. So he decided that because he has this elder brother, because they were breastfed by the same mother, he's going to do something. And he gave, and this is a historical fact, by the way. So he gave few important cities to him to rule. And whatever might have happened, he lost all that wealth that he had given. He lost everything, basically, the elder brother. But the emperor is still great. So the brother decided to go and see Akbar once again to find out if there is any solution. And he goes to his amazing palace. By the way, if you go, and I don't know whether you have seen, the palaces are unbelievable, amazing, the places where they lived. And you will wonder what a kind of a luxurious life they had, because there is no match of those palaces. They are so immense. So he goes to one of the palace, and the court is there, and the greatest treasures of the people of the all over India, they are part of his court. And one of the minister, his name is Birbal. Birbal is a really amazing, talented, the most wise person you can ever met at that time. So he's also there. And anyway, really fast forwarding the story. So the elder brother who lost everything says to Akbar that if I would have a Birbal, that intelligent guy you have as a minister, then I will also be very successful. It's just because of him you're so successful. So Akbar said, fine, you can take Birbal and be successful. And the next day he told Birbal and that you're going to go, and Birbal said, why not I send my elder brother with your elder brother, and he's also as smart as I am. So Akbar talked to this guy, his elder brother, and he agreed that he will take the elder brother of Birbal. Now here comes the last part of the story. I'm sorry that it was a little long story. So the what happens is next day Birbal is coming with a bull tied with a rope, and he's holding the rope and he's entering into the palace in the courtroom. And everybody said, "What the heck?" And Akbar said, "Why are you bringing a bull here?" Akbar, the Birbal, the smart guy, he said, "Because he's my eldest brother." And so the Akbar asked, "How did he become your eldest brother?" He said, drank drank the same mother's milk." The idea is that Akbar and that we get stuck with emotionalism, and we want to rationalize and take the action which can really vacate us, which can completely destroy us. In the case of Akbar, he was letting go his favorite and the best minister out of emotionalism, with the same reasoning that who is our mother? Who is our father in the realm of consciousness? Who are our relatives? Really, you have to ponder about these things. You have to look at from a different perspective and not to fall into the emotionalism. Emotionalism is the old way of life. What is the new way of life? A new way of life is an inspirationalism. A life of inspiration, life of intuition. This is a new life. So if you base your decision based on feeling, liking or disliking, you're still living an old life. Try to start a new kind of a life. Start making a decision where you're not making based on liking or disliking. Research one thing. Quantum physics are saying in these days clearly that our senses lie. They lie. There is no reality. What happens when the senses, the five senses, goes outside and interact with the object of the senses? What happens? Information does not appear immediately. Just a current happens. With that interaction, a current happens that goes into our brain, a current, energy, and that current goes into the back of the brain, and then it is translated depending upon the memory and the conditioning that existed in the brain. This is the theory of the quantum physics, and the mystics have been saying the same thing for a long ago. What have you been studying in Kabbalah? What is the greatest addiction mankind has? Anybody?
Addiction to feelings.
Addicted to senses. Sensate addiction. That is the greatest addiction we have. You can see that Yesod of Yesira is overlaying the death of Asaya. Sensate realization. When Kabbalah says when we interact, when the energy goes outside of the senses and interact with the object of the senses, sensation happens. And this sensation has only two aspects. You're going to like it, or you're going to dislike it. So both are erroneous. There is a new way of life. A new way of life is beyond liking and disliking. When you interact with something, when you allow yourself to be focused and the energy goes into that interaction and their mind is not somewhere else and it's not so many goals and diluted mind, then it will reveal something different that you have never ever experienced before. It is an amazing thing. Have you ever seen two pictures side by side and asking you to find 10 mistakes? Have you seen it?
Mm-hmm.
In the first glance, what do you find? Nothing. And in order to find mistake, what do you have to do? Focus. You cannot be distracted. If you're, and you can't be upset, oh, I'm not able to find it. If you're upset and sad, it will actually be worse. In order to really find a mistake, you have to calm down and relax, or I would say chillax, and then look at that picture, and then it will reveal by itself. You see, life is like that. You may see the things, and you have been seeing your family members and the spouse and the trees and the birds and the animals and the pets and the objects that you have all along from the same old eyes, and it does not reveal something different. And there is a love hidden in those things, love hidden in every realm of our experience. Calm down, relax, get out of the distraction, focus in that experience, in that moment, and love will be revealed. No matter what, no matter who they are, where they are. Because if you get caught up with liking and disliking, what is going to happen?
You make bad decisions.
Also, the person you are going to like, or the things that you are going to like, what can you predict?
You'll dislike it.
It's a moment of time. It's a common theme. We continue to fall into that roller coaster ride, no matter who they are and what object is, what thing are. Liking and disliking is going to happen. And when you are disliking in that very moment, can you remember all good things?
Mm-mm.
All good things dissipate in that the moment of disliking. See? I'm going to read something that what my mother taught me. It's not mine, but still it's very funny and interesting and true. My parents taught me to appreciate a job well done. If you're going to kill each other, do it outside. I just finished cleaning. My parents taught me religion. You better pray that will come out of the carpet. My parents taught me about time travel. If you don't straighten up, I'm going to knock you into the middle of the next week. My parents taught me logic. Because I said so, that's why. My parents taught me more logic. If you fall out of that swing and break your neck, you're not going to store with me. My parents taught me foresight. Make sure you wear clean underwear in case you are in an accident. My parents taught me irony. Keep crying and I will give you something to cry about. My parents taught me about the science of osmosis. Shut your mouth and eat your supper. My parents taught me about stamina. You will sit there until all the spinach is gone. My parents taught me about weather. This room of yours looks as if a tornado went through it. My parents taught me about hypocrisy. If I told you once, I have told you 1,000,000 times. Don't exaggerate. My parents taught me the circle of life. I brought you in this world.
I can take you out.
of it.
My parents taught me about behavior modification. Stop acting like your father. My parents taught me about envy. There are millions of less fortunate children in this world who do not have wonderful parents like you do. My parents taught me about anticipation. Just wait until I get home. My parents taught me about receiving. You are going to get it when I come home. My parents taught me medicinal science. If you don't stop crossing your eyes, they are going to freeze that way. And the last but not the least, my parents taught me ESP. Put your sweater on, Don't you think I know when you are cold? So you see that everyone is trying, everyone is forcing. Do you know, by the time we are adult, by the time we are 18-year-old, the parents have used 150,000 times negative conditioning to ourselves.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? 150,000 times.
And then even after we're grown, they keep doing it.
Then they do guilt. So, in order to be hero, or in order to for a hero to exist, what is the most important thing?
An event.
Well, close enough. So, this is something very important for us to take it from today's class. In order for a hero to exist, villain is the most important thing. Without villain, a hero is never ever going to be hero. Rest of the part, his courage, his strength, his endurance, all these things are insignificant. But if he wants to be called hero in the world, there has to be a villain. So what's a villain in our own life? And what do we do, and how do we see, and do we reject villain? If we reject the villain, then are we going to give a birth of a hero within? This is a question to ask. Can we give a birth of a hero within without understanding the role of a villain? No. So where is that villain?
Same place as the hero, inside.
It is the same place, but you have to understand that it's something that we don't like. So what you don't like, do you want to run away from it, or you want to understand it?
Understand it?
Understand it. Because the first criteria of being a hero to understand the villain properly. And we don't do that. We want to just brand something and escape and run away from it. We want to hide from it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in our journey. We have to look at that these are the necessary things. Mahatma says all the time, obstacles are blessings. Because through those obstacles, we grow and mature. When you are upset, that is a villain. That is a villain. When all these reaction happens in our lives, that is a villain. Are you going to feel guilty about it? Are you going to be upset about your upsetness? Or you're going to say, these are the necessary steps, maybe let me look about it, my upsetness, and maybe understand my upset, and that will reveal to you where the growth will happen. If we never ever get upset, are we going to grow and somewhere? The question to be asked. So in the level of mankind, not to be upset, this kind of expectation is an erroneous thing. You know, I play poker, and one of the most important thing in poker, when you're really confident about something, when you're sure about your hand, then you say all in. And so why not we are sure about this kind of a path, the path that we have chosen. The reason I would not say all in is doubt, non-surety. And I see among people distraction where they are wishy-washy. So nothing significant is going to take place. You know there are 4 worlds in the tree of life. And what are those 4 worlds? Spiritual, creation, formation, and manifestation. So pay attention. You have a car. What car is a physical world. Engine of the car is what? Formation. Engine. And so where is the creation? Creation is the part of the consciousness that is the fuel in the example of car. Fuel that runs the engine. So our feelings are run by the consciousness, by the awareness. But if the awareness is just going into the feelings, then we don't have for other aspects. So physical body is car. Emotions and feelings are the engines because they help us to create. Without them, you cannot take any action. You're not to eradicate feelings. You're not eradicate the thinking mind, the intellectual mind. They're the machinery. But the operator of the machine is missing. The one which provides the proper fuel. So the machine is running by itself amok.
So you have to use the emotion or see the emotion in a different way.
You have to use it. Just like I said that when you become reactive, a reaction happens in your mind.
So you respond in a intelligent way rather than just a
correct. Unless
reaction.
you do not
With
gain
no thought.
understanding, then we will continue to be reacting again and again and again. Understanding happens with a greater awareness when our mind is focused. One thing that is a piece of advice, then not to follow and get caught up in rut. When we become so rigid with our routine, then we are actually not becoming aware. Awareness will not be there in that, and the life will continue as unconscious. When you drive home and you go the same route, do you need awareness, or it's an automatic thing? But if you change your route and go in different way, guess what? You have to be more aware. The moment you become more aware, what happens? More is revealed to you. Remember that. The moment you become aware, that means you're focused and you're looking at the picture, one thing at a time, and the things will be revealed to you that you have never ever experienced. That is the whole thing I'm trying to explain to you. Do you know what Jesus said? Same thing. He said the people who have more will be given to them. And the people who have less, what they have is also going to be taken away. Have you heard this statement or not? So awareness, he's talking about the awareness. If you have the awareness, more understanding will be given to you. And if you don't have the awareness, whatever you have will be taken away sooner or later. It's just a matter of time. So when I have known people that they do exercise every day, or they run, and they have so rigid routine that the time that they can't run, the time they cannot do the exercise, the time they cannot do the rituals, their whole mindset, they become terrible about it. Hope we provide fluidity. Hope we provide flexibility in our routines. Because the moment you provide flexibility and do something outside of the routine, it will force you to be aware. It will force you to be aware. You cannot be unaware at that time. You're taking a risk. And you're all in that moment. Because you are confident. So start with the simple things in your life.